911, do you need police, fire, medical?
Man, it was somebody just shot.
Someone just shot? Were you just shot, you said?
No, someone was just shot. I was outside. I heard the gunshots. I came outside.
Location.
Castlewood Court.
Okay.
Castlewood Court.
Did you see it?
Can you hear me, bro?
I can hear you. Did you see it?
No, I just heard it and I came outside. Shot.
Okay.
That's the Woods Court.
Okay, listen, we're on the way. Did you see them?
No.
Do you see a victim?
Yes, the victim is in the driveway.
Okay, and did you see anybody drive by?
In 2013, a young veteran was gunned down in the driveway of a home on a quiet neighborhood street. What would make this case particularly challenging for investigators was not finding people who were there that night. In fact, there were as many as 4 other people standing within mere feet of Keran when he was shot multiple times at close range. Investigating this case has been a decade of sorting through the lies, many motives, and constantly changing stories of 3 different suspects to murder. I'm Bianca Gillette, Public Information Officer for the Sanford Police Department, and this is Cold Case of Keran Stanislaus. Officer Hector Rosado responded to the 911 call for service and was the first officer to arrive on scene.
I was on patrol, and I was actually in a neighborhood, an apartment complex near that neighborhood when we got the call. It came as shots fired. Someone was on the ground in front of a residence. No, it's a fairly quiet neighborhood. It's in the south end of the city. Well, I'm trying to get mentally ready. Again, I'm not sure what do I have when I go on scene, and it's just a lot of things going through your head at that point. What do I do when I get there? Who's on the ground? What does it look? My crime scene looks like. Trying to give information to the other officers going on scene. Well, when I got on scene, I remember seeing Keran on the ground, and he was still alive. He was breathing, and again, I'm trying to be calm because I don't know if the shooter's still there. I see another male going up and down the driveway. So my instinct is this the shooter? Is the shooter still around? Is the shooter still behind the house? So I'm trying to be calm. I'm looking at him. I'm trying to talk to Keran at that point. He's still breathing. He's looking at me. At that point, I didn't know his name, so I'm looking at the other male, asking for his name. I need a shirt so I can stop the bleeding.
Sanford, yeah, they need to. It looks like he was shot in the upper chest and in the face area. Hey, get me a towel. Get me a towel so I can put pressure on him.
Here, man. I ain't got a towel, but here.
I'm trying to talk to him to stay with me because he's still alive. He's still breathing. But at the same time, I'm looking at this other person. He's going up and down the driveway. I'm not sure what's, going on with him. If he was a friend or if he is the shooter, why are you not helping him? If this is your friend, I wasn't sure if it was a friend or family member. Why are you not here helping him? I'm trying to calm him down to help me out.
Yo, what the fuck? You try to keep him awake. Talk to him.
Man, Keran, bro.
Talk to him. Come on. Keep talking to him. Come on.
Bro.
Come on. Come on.
Bro.
All right, I'll do. Can you back up? I'll figure out to back up.
Bro.
Talk. Keep talking to him. Keep talking. Come. Y'all didn't hear nothing. Listen. Come here. Talk to him. What's his name? Are you serious?
Well, once FD gets there, then everything changes. Everything slows down for us once FD gets there.
Keran was a good kid. He went and he served in the military. He got a Purple Heart. Got bombed in Afghanistan and come home to get gunned down in the streets by another human being. And that's a shame.
The things that stand out for us when we arrived on scene in this case was there was talk that it was a drive-by shooting, which would have the shell casings would be, you would think, in the street or somewhere in that area. One of the first things we noticed is that the shell casings are up in the driveway, indicating that he was probably shot from the driveway and he was closer to the street. There was also, I believe, a McDonald's cup and a bottle of liquor, I believe Fireball, that was up on the vehicle that was parked in the driveway. We later learned that some of the parties had gone to a liquor store and we thought maybe that was a purchase that they had made after finding out that information. When Officer Rosado arrived on scene, it would appear that Keran's head was towards the street. His feet were, more toward the residence, and he was face up, I believe, appearing that he had been shot from someone between him and the residence. He was transported and pronounced deceased. They worked on him until the next day, which was April 18th when he was pronounced deceased. The medical examiner's report indicated he had been shot multiple times. I believe there was some upper torso shots around the heart area, around his chest. We knew the shooter was in close proximity to Keran, in front of him, within feet of him. And based on the angles of the shots, we know that the shooter was low to the ground. Keran was shot in an upward angle. He was continued to be shot after he was going down as well, also from a low point of aim. Why was Keran there that night? He was there to confront James Sullivan. They had a disagreement. I think they had spoke earlier, and Keran had come there to, talk to James further about a young lady that they knew in common, I guess you could say. The people that were on scene when we arrived was James Sullivan, and some of the neighbors had come out, I guess, after the shots were fired. Based on the investigation, the people that were there were determined to be James Sullivan, Javon Sullivan, and Adam Whiteside. James and Keran were, brother-in-laws. It was his brother-in-law. When we arrived on scene, both Javon and Adam were not there. They had left the area. So the gun that was used was not on scene at the time, and we believe it was taken from the scene by someone who was seen on video surveillance running from the area. And the two people that we knew that fled the area right after the shooting was Javon Sullivan and Adam Whiteside. James's state was, he appeared to be intoxicated. So when we brought James Sullivan back to the police station, his statement was that he was knocked out. When he awoke, Keran was already shot. When we were interviewing James, there was a couple of items that were noteworthy. He had abrasions on his knees, which I guess kind of matched the story that he was on the ground at some point. That particular night, we tested James's hands for gunshot residue, did a GSR, what's called a GSR kit for the gunshot residue, and submitted that to a private lab. The results came back positive that James had either fired a gun or been around in close proximity of someone who had fired a gun recently. What we know about Adam Whiteside is that he wasn't on scene when we arrived, but we later interviewed him about 9 days later. And it was stated that he ran because he thought he had a warrant, or he had a warrant. His statement was that he was in the backyard when the shots rang out. He came around and to the front of the residence, and Keran had already been shot. What we know that Adam Whiteside did was he called 911. He was one of the 911 callers that night. Based on the 911 call, Adam appeared to be upset as he wanted help for Keran. So in interviews with Adam Whiteside, he said that he had originally been in the backyard. I guess they were shooting dice in the backyard. He heard the shots. He came around, he saw both James and Keran on the ground. He stated that James appeared to be unconscious. And I believe that's when, at that point, he called 911. Out of those three suspects, what we believe is their involvement is that one of them removed the gun from the scene, and their accessories to the murder. Maybe they all conspired to commit the murder. We just don't know at this time. It's particularly unsettling that James and Javon haven't come forward. I mean, these are Keran's brother-in-laws. They're brothers. James and Javon are brothers, and Keran's their brother-in-law. So whatever beef they had, you wouldn't think that it would result in the death of Keran. I mean, they're related, not by blood, but that's their sister's husband. And even more so, like I said, the fact that we have three people there, they know who the shooter is. They were all right there within feet. So one of them has to have known who the shooter is, but they just will not come forward. The person that was there that night would have been Elizabeth Condi. Elizabeth Condi has changed her statement multiple times during the course of the investigation. Elizabeth Condi's first story is that her, James, Javon, and Adam were all together, had gone to the liquor store. Once they left the liquor store, She had dropped Javon off at the gas station and come back to the residence with just James, Adam, and herself. We later learned from surveillance from throughout the neighborhood is that they all came back to the residence. It was determined that Elizabeth Conley had been on scene during the shooting, but had left just after the shooting. So Elizabeth's final story of the incident that took place that day is that she was, in fact, on scene and she was within feet of all the individuals in the driveway. But she could not say who had a gun, who shot Keran. We believe Elizabeth hasn't been truthful with investigators because she's friends with all of them. After the shooting, she started receiving threats, probably just out of fear. None of the people that are close to these individuals have been forthcoming with information. So to complicate matters, one of the girlfriends of the people on scene perjured themselves by trying to create an alibi for them during the night of the shooting. That resulted in the arrest of this witness. Ultimately, what we have is 5 individuals on scene, including Keran. The 4 that remained on scene were uncooperative, gave us different stories, even though they were within feet of the shooting. None of them claimed to have known what happened. Didn't see who shot Keran. Didn't see who had a gun either. So it's 10 years later, these individuals at the time of the shooting were all in their 20s. Keran was a little bit older. So 10 years later, here we are. These individuals are now in their 30s. They have kids of their own. And they've gone on to live their lives. Keran didn't have that opportunity. He left 4 kids behind.
Just asking someone to please come forward and bring the one to justice. It has affected so many lives, so many children, his children's lives, his brothers and his sisters, aunts, friends, family and friends. And I'm quite sure whoever did this, it's affecting them too. So if you please, just please, see in your heart to come and just let us know what happened so I can have a closure on Keran's death.
So we're hoping that some of the relationships have dissolved. Some of the girlfriends, maybe friends of the Sullivans, maybe some of the neighbors that lived there at the time that didn't want to come forward out of fear. Maybe they've moved now and have information that they're willing to share with us since they're no longer in the neighborhood. In the past 10 years since Keran's death, I've talked, I've spoken with his mom, I've spoken with his sister. It's frustrating that I can't give them any new information. We haven't gotten any further with the case. We haven't gotten any new leads.
If someone knows who did this, who killed Keran, I cannot bring my child back, but someone could bring another to justice. And so many lives have been affected by this.
So this particular case affected me because Keran has served his country. He was injured, protecting the freedoms for the people who live in this country. For him to lose his life, it's frustrating to me because I also am a veteran. I've served, I've been overseas, I wasn't injured, I've been in a combat zone. So for him to survive, in a foreign country, foreign enemies, to come back here and be shot and killed by someone that he probably never would have thought would have killed him is particularly frustrating.